and I cannot, you're going to hear me say this a million times and probably get tired of it, but I am so happy to see so many familiar, wonderful, familial faces in the crowd. It's a weekend we've all been looking forward to in the Cherokee Nation, so I'm glad it's finally here. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce some folks who are here with us today. Some of them you're going to hear from, but some of them took time out of their busy schedules just to be here this morning with us. First and foremost, we're going to hear from him, of course, but let's recognize the Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Mr. Chuck Hoskins, Jr. And we will hear from him as well in a moment. That's the Deputy Principal Chief, Mr. Brian Warner. This gentleman was here last night with us as well. You're going to see him all weekend. That is your at-large tribal council member, Mr. Johnny Jack Kidwell. Councilor Kidwell also serves as the secretary of the tribal council, a huge job, so I want to make sure to recognize him as the secretary of the tribal council as well. Also pleased to have this lady here with us. She's a wonderful Cherokee leader. She is a first language Cherokee speaker. She's a tribal council representative from District 10, Miss Melvina Shophouse. And when I think about the tribal council, when I think about CCO or community organizations, I think about this lady. You guys have seen her work she does in her community, whether it's on social media or you see it in person. She's a wonderful leader, a wonderful servant leader. That's Councilwoman Miss Dora Smith-Patskowski. And we're going to hear from him in a moment as well, but I want to make a special recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a treat. We're going to have him in a little bit to talk with us about community organizing a little later. Let's recognize Mr. Charlie Soap. Well, this morning we're going to go ahead and get started the way we always do. Oh, I'm sorry, I snuck in on you. This guy probably had to brave some storms just down the road around Locust Grove. I want to recognize Councilman Danny Callison. We're going to get started the way we always do, going before the Creator, asking for His blessing, and to provide a welcome. To do both of those things this morning, no better person for it. Please welcome the Deputy Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Brian Warner.
CEO to God. Man, what a great day. What a great morning. I will tell you that God is good all the time. This morning, we're sitting here, we're getting ready to leave, and he put weathermen and women in place for us to understand that something's coming our way. And I looked out and I saw the storm. I told my wife, and I said, well, we better hunker down a little bit before we leave. And then I walked back out one more time. I thought, well, maybe it's going to come this way, or who knows. You walk outside, you get that feeling. One thing you do know, you got to remember, Cherokees have been connected to this earth since time immemorial, and we know how to pay attention. When all the neighborhood dogs went to barking and really getting after it, it was time to hunker down. And I gathered up my little family, and we hunkered down, and the neighbor called and said, hey, you can come get the sports center. I said, it's too late. We'll ride it out. But luckily, thanks be to God, and right there in that close area, no damage. But we don't know right now. We know emergency management is out assessing and doing those things. But it's so good to be able to be here with each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time out of your life, out of your busy schedule to be here, to share your talent and your dedication for your community group, for your community, for your family, for your nation. That is so important, that we help serve one another, that we continue to move forward. Chief says it all the time. Communtiy, it's not just something that we do when we're together, it's something that we practice when we're away each and every day. And no matter where you reside from, no matter where you come from, no matter which direction your trail was here today, we all remain connected. We all remember our Cherokee community values. So this week, let's share, let's fellowship, let's enjoy one another's time together. Let's take that time to remember some of those that may have passed on before us that really set the tone in your community. within your group, within your leadership. I know that you know those individuals that we're talking about. Each and every day, life passes on and our Creator takes somebody, but remember, I know each and every day that new life springs up, new ideas, new ways to do things. So thank you all for being here. Let's bow our heads and go to the Creator in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day once again, Lord. Thank you for this time of fellowship. Thank you for your grace and mercy. Help us all remember that it's that grace and mercy that we are to give to one another freely as you give it to us. Let us remember as Cherokees, to hold one another's existence stingy as a mother is with a child, lifting one another up. Lord, and today you have provided safe traveling graces for those that are here. Lord, I ask for a hedge of protection around these groups, around these organizations, around these individuals, their families, and their neighbors. Lord, there may be those that are out there suffering, no doubt. We ask that you lend it to our heart and our eyes and our hands to how we can help, Lord. Let us not be scared. Let us not be frightened, because we know that you have already conquered all, Lord. Lift us up today. These provisions that you have provided this morning, Lord, we ask that you bless the hands prepared them and use it for the nourishment of our body. Lord, and on this day, help us to listen with the eyes and the ears of our heart, so that we may see and hear the true love that you put in each and every one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, once again, thank you all and welcome here to the Hard Rock Casino. More importantly, welcome to the Cherokee Nation Reservation. Thank you.
Folks, let's give him one more big round of applause, Deputy Chief Brian Warren. So I want to recognize a gentleman. I actually got to visit with him about the district he represents this morning, but I want to recognize Oklahoma State Representative Williams is in the crowd today. Let's give him a big round of applause. He's from Seminole country. He come to learn a few things. I'm just kidding. Good to have you here, sir. Well, we're going to get started this morning, and folks, this next gentleman I get the pleasure of introducing. I've had the great fortune to work for this man, alongside this man, for many years, dating back to when he was the Secretary of State of the Cherokee Nation. And I even remember the time when he was on the Tribal Council of the Cherokee Nation. Some of you may have seen a young picture of him on social media lately of his time and service there. But the reason I say that is because as I reflect on that one thing, there's been many things that he focuses on, but one thing that has been constant at the forefront of his mind and those around him is our communities. I don't even have to tell you that. You guys know. You guys see it. The t-shirts this year, the theme of the conference is a great century of Cherokee organizing. That's something Savannah and I stole from Chief Oscar. He came up with that. And it's not just a saying. If you look around at the Cherokee Nation, we are in a great century of Cherokee organizing, and that starts with leadership. So please recognize at this time the Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Mr. Chuck Hoskins, Jr.
Secretary, Chief Warner, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, community organizers, leaders in our communities here on the reservation and across this country. It is an honor always to be with you. I've been running around with Kane and Duncan a long time. Lately, here's what's happened. I'll be at events and they'll say, the announcer will say, and a great young Cherokee leader, and I'll start to rise out of my seat. No, you're 50 years old. They're talking about Kane and Duncan, a great young Cherokee leader. My time is on the other side of it. But this event is important to me. It's always been important to me. What you do is important to me and the Deputy Chief and the Council. community organizing goes to the core of who we are. It is, I think, a way to represent the very best of who we are as Cherokees. It is a concept that's as old as our people. It goes back to time immemorial. We've always been a people that's been built from the grassroots up, not the top down. Even as our government changed in the first quarter of the 19th century, we had to get stronger. We had to centralize. Even in this century, when we are growing, I think, by leaps and bounds, and we're doing things in the area of business that spans the globe. We're doing things in government that increasingly is so consequential in the lives of people across this reservation and even across the country. Even as our operations get bigger and bigger and bigger, we're still a people that see themselves as part of a family, part of a collection of communities. I've shared this before, but one of the concerns that I have as we get stronger by different measures, economically, in terms of the tribal government budget, in terms of our economic impact, which is measuring in the billions of dollars right now, in terms of our workforce, which 14,000 people all across not only this reservation and across this country, but around the globe, that the danger is that we get so big that we forget where we came from, that we stray from those fundamental principles that make us Cherokee. It happens in big organizations, it happens in corporations, and it happens in governments. And you've seen it. We don't want that to happen with the Cherokee Nation. We've got to always achieve some balance. We have to keep striving for excellence. I mean, in healthcare, we've got to keep striving to be a world-class system of wellness. We can do it in this century. We've got to be a business that spans the globe over and over and over, round and round and round, keeps getting bigger, keeps dominating and leading in industry and creating jobs and building up sources of revenue so we can keep building for our people. All of the government programs that operate in some ways the way no other government does, a sense of compassion, a sense of dedication, those need to keep getting stronger. But the balance is that we've got to stay rooted. We've got to stay a people that are community-based. I think our culture depends on it. I think the revitalization of our language depends on it. I think that by the end of this century, Cherokees are going to have hung on to what it means to be Cherokee, our culture, our lifeways, our language, or they're not going to have done that. And what we do in this generation is going to, in part, depend on that outcome or dictate that outcome. And so that's why CCO, by the way, the CCO department remains one of the smallest departments in the Cherokee Nation, but their expanse is all over the country. It's remarkable. They're a family. They've got each other's back. And I just want to take a moment to thank the CCO department led by Savannah Smith. With that department and these investments that we make to hopefully help empower you to do what you want to do in your communities and serve and create safe places for kids and welcoming places for elders and places for families to get together and places where our language revitalization can spread far and wide and places where our culture can be rediscovered and our history can be taught. That's why that's so important to me. Because as I see it, if we don't tend to the work that you do, at the end of this century, we may be big and great in a lot of things. We may have the best casinos in the market. We may have businesses that, again, are dominating in lots of different areas. We may have a healthcare system that does achieve that world-class system of wellness that we're building towards. But we will have lost something if we lose what it means to have grassroots power, grassroots enthusiasm. That's why what you do is important. I do have an announcement to make. CCO spends most of its time reaching out to you, trying to help you, trying to understand what your needs are, and administering grants that come from the Cherokee Nation budget that the council appropriates. It's rare that we get to make this announcement. Now, Savannah Smith has been on the job as executive director for almost a year. It's almost the 1-year anniversary. What happened? And what she accomplished that I'm just about to, and she'll tell you it's a team effort, but we have to give credit to the captain of this team. She secured a grant of $1.3 million to put generators in every community building within this reservation that doesn't have one. That's 15 generators. 15. And why that matters is obvious, but it is more obvious on mornings like today, when the deputy chief and I are on text message strings about tornadoes coming into some of our communities, and we're thinking about the last round of severe storms, and then we're thinking about a year ago and a year before that when homes were damaged and people were injured. And sometimes, of course, lives are lost. The community buildings within this reservation that you all operate become a safe haven, and making sure that there's generators there could mean the difference between misery and security, sometimes life and death. And so these investments through grants from the federal government or whatever the funding source, getting them out to the grassroots is really important. And I'm proud of the department for securing that grant. Last year, we announced, the deputy chief and I, an initiative about wellness. And we also announced a proposal about housing and also community buildings. And I want to give you a little bit of an update on that. This department, by the way, aside from that $1.3 million grant, the funds really are sourced from what we call tribal funds. That is funds not from the government of the United States, but funds from the Cherokee Nation's own operations, our own direct efforts. And that's important. We're living in a time in which the federal funding picture is looking uncertain, and there's some degree of concern about what that'll look like in the future. I know this. It doesn't matter what the state of the federal budget is, as long as the Cherokee people are enthused about organizing and building in their communities. It doesn't matter how many dollars we have. We're going to get them out to the communities. That's our commitment. That's what we do. So there's two sources of funds that I want to tell you about. I've talked about them before. I told you I talked about them last year. One is a law that we proposed to the council to renew called the Housing, Jobs, and Sustainable Communities Act. What it is mostly about is housing, but it's partially about community buildings. And so that package, which we took to the council and the council approved last fall, puts $40 million into a package for 3 years, but $6 million of that goes to community buildings. And so we are presently taking those dollars out into the communities across this reservation and planning, building expansions and new buildings. And that's exciting because we've got to build towards the future. I saw my friend Rob Doherty pumping his fist. That's because he knows Oak Hill Piney is one of the communities that will be getting a building. But there are others. There are others that are out there that need investment. And I promise you, we're coming. We're coming with these dollars that the council has entrusted us with. And we've got to keep doing that because we've got to be serious about community organizing efforts. You all are serious. We need to match that with an investment. There's so much good that goes on in these buildings, right? There's so many opportunities to perpetuate what it means to be Cherokee, to protect elders, and to make a safe haven for kids, and a whole lot of other things. So that package that the council approved is going to continue to make a difference. Now, in the last 5 years, the Housing, Jobs, and Sustainable Communities Act has put a lot of dollars already into communities. $35 million in community building expansions, community building construction, solar panels on top of some of our community buildings, and a lot of other efforts to make your community stronger. And we've got $14 million right now in construction underway. And so this $40 million, $6 million of which over the next 3 years is going to go out into the communities, is on top of and against the backdrop of an historic effort to build in the communities. So we've got more to do, which brings me to the next law that really is going to, I think, fuel into the future efforts, not only within the reservation, but across the country where at-large Cherokees are organizing. And we know they are because we visit you throughout the year. So last year we announced here the wellness grants. How many organizations out there have applied for those wellness grants? Let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. Show it in. Let's hear from you. We put millions of dollars on the table for that. And right now we've got about $500,000 out the door to community organizations that apply. We're going to keep this going every year. These are $25,000 grants that you can use at large, or you can use here at home to work on your community buildings and build space for wellness, create programs for wellness. I've got a list here of different activities. This is amazing. Somebody's doing fly fishing classes. Somebody's doing community gardens. There's 5K runs that have been scheduled. Nutrition and cooking classes. Last year, Kanan and I worked with a lady, Kathy Fight Calloway, who said, I can do canning classes. I've never seen anything more popular than canning classes. I said, Kanan, I've got to have my picture next to some canning classes. That's the most popular thing on the reservation. But it's because there's a hunger out there to get back to ways that, in many ways, are old ways that maybe we've forgotten. These wellness grants can help you do that. There's walking trails that are being constructed under that program. There's wellness preservation. There's wellness presentations. I know you folks are familiar with Abraham Bearpaw, Walking in Balance. That's been something that's been important to all of you. These dollars, I think, are some of the most precious dollars that we spend. Not a penny of them come from the government of the United States. They come from the efforts of your fellow Cherokees. And I think this is a great use of those dollars. As I'm thinking about what we're doing now and the dollars we have planned in the future, I am thinking about great community buildings, safe places again for young people, a great environment for elders, places for families to gather, places for our language and culture, everything it needs to be Cherokee to be revitalized. But we've got to continue to plan into the future. We've got to think what the rest of this century is going to look like in terms of community organizing. If at the end of this century we're still doing what we should be doing, then this room will be twice as big, if not bigger. We'll have to open that wall up because there'll be so much more going on at the grassroots if we do our jobs correctly in leadership. So earlier this year we impaneled a task force on community organizing. Kanan Duncan leads that task force. Savannah Smith's on the task force. Donnie Squirrel. Is Donnie here today? I know Donnie Squirrel are good. Donnie, you've done a great deal. Vince Feeling, Brad Eubanks, and a new addition to the task force you'll hear in a minute, Roger Graham. You ever heard of Roger Graham? Where's Roger at? There's Roger Graham. You're going to hear from him in a moment. What I've asked them to do is to think about what is the future of community organizing? What can we do to support you better? The Deputy Chief and I talk about this a lot. We put a lot of dollars into communities and we've sent a lot of dollars out to the at-large communities, and we should do that. And we're seeing amazing results. But we've got to think about what more can we do to build capacity in your communities. What more can we do apart from dollars to help you serve your communities? And that's what we've asked this task force to ask and answer. They're asking you all what you think. They're putting out a survey to ask the public what they think. We're asking the council for their help and their input. Because I don't believe in standing still when it comes to the Cherokee Nation. We were not a people who were meant to stand still. We know if we're standing still on something as important as community organizing, that we'll be falling behind, and we were not a people who were meant to fall behind. I can assure you that. And so I want you to lean into this work with the task force. I want you to give us your suggestions. What can we do to make things even better in your communities? One of the great initiatives that I think is making a difference in your communities that we have to think, can we scale this up, is a program called Gadugi Corps. Have you heard of Gadugi Corps? I think it's making such a big difference. Sean Griffin leads it. Those are the sorts of ideas and initiatives that we've got to keep up. We're going to keep to our roots, keep to our fundamentals. At the end of the day, what really matters is, do the Cherokee people think that the best days of the Cherokee Nation are ahead of us? And just as important, do they think the best days of their Cherokee communities are ahead of them? And it doesn't matter whether you live here on the reservation or whether your community is halfway across the country. Cherokee community is everywhere, and I think the best days of our communities are ahead of us, and I'm glad to pitch in to try to get that done. Thank you all for your help.
What on, Chief? Well, folks, what do we think about the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation? Let's hear it one more time. Right. And Chief, I'm so glad you mentioned the task force too, because I know some of you have probably seen your emails already, but everyone who's a member of an organization and every board member should have received a survey by now. So take that. If you didn't receive a survey, let us know. And of course, come talk to us about it at any time throughout the conference. At this time, I mentioned him earlier, and it's really, truly a treat to, I'm going to get my notebook out and take notes during this keynote, because it's a treat to have this man. I've known of him and about him since I was a little kid in Adair County. And I know everyone in this room has known him and about him for a very long time, and that's because of his leadership. It's because of his community organizing. And he's laid the foundation for us here at the Cherokee Nation to look back at and take notes from. And I'm very excited. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Charlie Sullivan.
Wow, it's been a wonderful morning already. I'm excited. I'm ready to get back to work in the communities. Chief. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here, and it's an honor. I'm so glad to see so many people here. And one of the things that the Chief asked is, how can we make it better?
I emailed you
can
a
make it
movie
better by
version of that
participating in your
video from
community,
lunch.
helping these people, helping CCO with these projects online and getting this done. It's up to you to make these things happen. So I would encourage you to participate in those areas that you're from. This morning I want to talk about how this whole thing started about the community organizing. Back then, I'm not sure people have heard of the word community organizing, but what happened back then was, this is the 80s, in the mid-80s, we got involved with the Bell community. Mr. Duncan, you know where that is. And he's from that community. It's one of the poorest communities in America that we had to work with, we had to start with. And a lot of this started from this community. And don't think that communities can't do anything. Look what kids have done. So I'll talk about that. We'll see what we started with, what we were against. And I was employed with the Housing Authority of Cherokee Nation at the time, and I heard that they wanted me to come to a meeting. And the meeting was at the Housing Authority office, and Principal Chief Ross Swinton had asked me to come. So I went there, and when I walked into the room, there was Chief Swimmer, the Housing Authority staff, and then Wilma Mankiw was sitting there. And I was introduced to Wilma there. And at the end of the meeting, the whole thing came out about the people in the community needing water in Bell, Oklahoma. And again, in Bell, when you mentioned Bell, it is no business anybody from Bell, but they sort of looked down on the community because it was one of the poorest states. They said these Cherokees are lazy, they won't do anything, that they can do anything that they want to. So they're not going to do anything. So with that in mind, it really kind of got me in, and I kind of riled up because it was talking about my people. Because I grew up, I didn't grow up, and I lived in Steam Stick community right next door to Bell. And we had Alan Ross Swimmer, son, Bill Mankiw, and I, to bring the communities together and bring the people in Bell together to build the self-help volunteer water line. I thought, hey, wait a minute, you know what you're talking about? You know Bell. There's no way we can get those people together. Because I knew that their attitude towards the government was that they provided promises, they lied to us, and how we were going to overcome that. So when Wilma and I started going to these communities, they already started rejecting us because we represented the Cherokee Nation. They said, Charlie, you're just another Indian coming in here making promises. You're not going to do anything. And they would turn their backs on us. But we had to really work at trying to get those people to realize what they had to do. So we went to Bell, we were in the communities, day and night, trying to get people to support the project and get them to realize that the only way they're going to get water in their community was for them to do it themselves. And it didn't go over very good. So, but we kept going back, we kept going there. And it's almost like we lived in that community. And over time, we started gaining a little bit of respect, and what we saw what they were facing, I realized then why they were saying that Bell is one of the poorest communities, because they needed money, they electric bills, they needed water, they needed housing, they needed anything the community needs, but there was such a poor area, they couldn't get those what they needed. So one of the things that happened was that Wilma was able to secure a grant. I don't really know where she got the money, but when people would need some stuff like things like door replace, screen doors, windows, things like that, the basic needs they needed, Wilma was able to give some money to the people. And the thing that we got them started was that we asked people. My brother Johnson lived in the community. Said, John, how do you get people to participate? He said, it's hard because they don't have the money, they don't have the means to help each other. And so when Wilma would give them some money to buy a window, to replace a screen door, or repair, and that sort of woke people up. And then they came forward and said, you give us some gas money, I need to take them on to the doctor, Hastings and Talcott. Back then, that was fun. I remember we used to ride a Greyhound bus to get to Hastings from Stillwell a long time ago. You don't see Greyhounds anymore, I don't think. I haven't seen one in a long time. But anyway, we got that going, and then now people started getting more respect for us. You could see the attitudes towards us was changing, and we kept that up. But we never gave up on it. We never gave up the fact that we had to sit there and help. So anyway, we were also in a position that we had to really make this work. We had to get them people to think about the water coming into their communities. So, can you hear me okay? Back there, can you hear me? Okay, great, good. Back there, can you hear me? Okay. So when we started getting these people active and getting their things together, trying to get those people to help each other, then these started coming around. And one of the things that really happened was that we started, my brother Johnson was going to Salem Church. And we got introduced to Pastor Lawrence Eagle and a lot of members we had not met. So we started getting more people, going to people's homes, visiting in their homes and their families and things like that. So anyway, they kind of got to where they would trust us, and they started respecting us, and they knew that we were there to help. And those things are really, really important to us, because when you're out there and you experience yourself, when you're trying to do something, nobody's coming forward, nobody's coming to help, you're disappointed, you don't want to do it, you just want to give up. But one thing we learned in that community was never to give up, just keep going at it. And that's what we were doing. And so after a while, the people came forward, more and more came. And we talked about water then. We never let the word water come into your community die out. We kept that hope up for them. And so at the time that by the time we got to where we were kind of getting people's trust, then we started talking more about water. And we started saying, how can we do this? We're going to use pick and shovels to dig 18 miles of water line? And you got to know better. That community, that terrain, Billy, as you know, is a rugged terrain. Chief, you've been out there. Rocky, ravines, it's a rough community, rough country. So we had to get all that in place. So believe me, so we use heavy equipment. We're not going to just let you do this water line with pick and shovel. And so we started getting more and more people involved. And the thing that was really impressive was the fact that some of the other people would really come forward, the older people, to change the people. And one thing that we talked about, really opened people's eyes, was when we started using the word volunteer labor. It was nothing new to the elders. The people that had come, that were before us, our parents and grandpas, they knew what that was. And they said, God do get on me, no hand. God do give us a dynamics. God do give us an anthem. Are you going to use volunteer labor? That's what that word means, God do give. People coming together, helping each other. Everybody coming together in the community to do what they need, get the job done. So that word came together, came alive. I remember hearing that when I was a little boy, but when I started hearing from the elders again, God do together, stand under God on. And then people started listening to the elders. And so we started having meetings, more people attended. The thing that we really needed was the money. We didn't have the money to do it. So Wilma wrote a grant to HUD. We told HUD we was going to build a water line, 18 miles of water line with volunteer labor. HUD said they never heard of anything like that. They turned us down. So, knowing Wilma, she was tenacious. She never gave up. Wilma wrote another grant, revised the grant. In the meantime, the people had already got interested in building this water line. They said, we'll do it. We can do this water line. Just give us the means. And they started electing the board members. They started electing the committees. Who's going to do what? Who's going to do this and that. In the meantime, we're lacking funds, and we're saying, hey, we're going to be lying to these people again if we don't get that money. So we better get some money. So Wilma revised the grant money, went back to Oklahoma City, and this time we got funding. Jules Valdez, unfortunately, he got killed in the Oklahoma City bombing. He approved the funding for the Bell Water Line. And when they heard about that, they came forward, the whole community started coming together, saying, we can do this. One of the things that there's some non-Indians that lived in the community because they had married some Cherokee women into our Bell community, and so they knew where the good women were. So I'm just kidding. So these are hard-working people. So when we told them that we had the money, people came and we met in the Bell cafeteria, standing room only. Full house poppers, people stand outside. One of the things that people asked when we told them we had the money coming in, is non-Indian asked, where do I get my money? And I had to tell them, you can't get water because this money is for Cherokees only. And boy, the room just got quiet. And I knew I had said the wrong things, I'm in trouble. So this full-blood got up. He said, Charlie, I don't like what you say. He said, this man is a friend, he's a neighbor, and he is in our community. He said, he needs water just like we do. I said, I'm sorry. We can't do this. Because I don't want to go to jail for misusing federal funds, federal dollars. People go to prison, go to jail. I don't want to go to prison. And This other man got up, Volvo, and said, why can't we raise the money from them to get on the water line? And the whole community started clapping. So that we can do this. So the Cherokees raised the money for the non-Indians working together with them and raised the money so everybody could get on the water line. That's what Chief Huston's talking about. People working together. People coming together, providing better communities, better lives for our people. And so anyway, we did the water line, the communities went to work, and volunteers came, men, women, kids came. It was awesome. To us, we were just working, not knowing what was coming behind us. They were singing the pathway that the chief administrations are doing now. They're doing some great things in the communities. I've been out there and I've seen it. Makes me feel good. I said, that's all this regular. These are everyday people that's making this happen. So I commend you, thank you, applaud you for doing what you're doing in the community. Because there's a lot of work, a lot of frustration, a lot of time consuming. But when we started the water line, people came and they started digging, they started working those hot summer days or cold winter days. They were out there, never gave up. And the next thing you know, the media got a hold of it. Local newspapers, the whole community was in the headlines, making paper. And then the CBS Sunday Morning News, Charles Garreau did a special nationwide, and then CBS, Dad Rather. Dad Rather was something, he really did a good job at that one. So those people started coming to media, together, people from Kansas and Arkansas, Missouri, far as Chicago would come to see what was going on in Bell. When the poorest communities in the United States come together and build a water line, people helping each other. It was awesome. It was something else. And then people started coming and saying, other communities, that we want to do what Bell's doing. Dry Creek, Cave Springs, Henderson, all those communities in there was in. So a lot of these self-help projects was going on because of what Bell, Oklahoma started. And even the politicians that come to Bell who had never heard about going there before, but they were coming, they were interested, they were enthused. These people inspired people across the country and still inspiring people. So Bell community is someone that really needs recognized as far as that goes. But it depends on leadership, it depends on your participation. So it's so important to participate in these communities. You can't sit back and expect other people to do it. It's your community, your family. It's your responsibility to make these things happen. So we can't blame the government and anybody else. Because you're the government. You're the ones that make things happen. And you can do it. So anyway, from there, the Bell community was successful. They built the water line. And then on top of that, this was a volunteer labor, self-help. They got funded for building houses. They built 25 new homes. They remodeled every house. The reason we couldn't get funding was because the government said you have no water. How can we build homes? How can we do this? How can you repair homes when you have no money? The plumbing, you had no plumbing in those houses. Well, we got water there. Now we said, now we need money to build these homes, remodeled homes. And that's what happened. They remodeled every home in the community. They built a community building. And it's just really doing good. The school was in danger of closing. The school's still going. That's in the 80s. In the 1920s, so they're doing something. And then now we're seeing other communities doing what they've done. So, but that's where we started. And I could go on and tell you all the wonderful things that happen in the communities. And it's really done well. Cherry Tree, one of the poorest community, Chuck, you know where that is, Chief Hoskins. It's a lot of kids were having problems. The kids came together and they said, Charlie, can you come and help us with some of these things that we need help with, youth programs? I said, I don't do youth programs. And so, but we did that. There was just a lot of things. And people would ask, Charlie, how did you and Wilma go into Bell? How did you teach those people how to do the self-help? When I think about it, Chief, they taught us. they told Weldon and I how to do it self-help. Because we had never done a self-help project using volunteer labor before. Working with them, we learned from them that God was very much alive, and the older people were there to help us do that. So, and if we can learn that, if Bell can learn this, other communities can learn this, you know. Money is important, but the spirit in your heart is much more important. Really get out there and help them, because administrations give you money to do it with. It's up to you to do this work that needs to be done. You can't wait on a Cherokee Nation. They've got their hands full. You can't work on the federal government. It's up to you. And like I said, you are the government. And you can do the work that needs to be done. You can support it. So, but anyway, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. I hope that everybody has a great time. Welcome to Cherokee Nation, Oklahoma. I thank the leadership that you provided, council, administration, staff. You know, one of the most important things that I think is that you can see the chief and everybody working the council. That's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility to be looking out for the people. But the thing is too also is you have to recognize the people that's behind the scenes, the workers, employees. Employees make things happen. The directors behind the scene desk making things happen. They're the ones that make it happen. We go out and community. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and Savannah, Nick. So thank you very much. Good luck with the community. Again, I have one term, one motto, whatever you want to say. I have a friend that would say we did this community. We did community gardens too. And every time we got ready to move on one of those projects, he said, the bus is moving. He said, the bus is moving. If you want a garden, you better get on board. You better get on the bus, because we're not going to wait for you. And so what I say is take the driver's seat in the bus and drive the communities forward. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you can do it. You can do anything you want to do, set your mind to it. There's no such things that can't be done, because they've been proven in these poor communities. Thank you very much.
I wrote all this down, but I don't want to read it.
I thought he would be the type that
I'd like to
would
introduce
go.
my son, Venerable Soap. Would you please, Venerable? His friend, the representative, Dan Williams. Dan, would you stand up so we can... Yes, anybody likes surprises. Anyway, Billy Hicks, would you stand up? Would you come up here with us, please? We did a lot of water lines, miles and miles of water lines, because of this gentleman right here, because of his leadership. He ran the water and sanitation department, the engineers, his staff was the one that provided the design, the plans, the money. Had to get money from Indian Health Service to put these water lines in. So, anyway, I always want to give credit to my staff, because they would say, Charlie did this, Charlie did that. I said, no, those people, my staff, did the work. I just happen to be the one that gets all the BS when it comes down the line. So, anyway, I want to say this to Billy. I know it's going to be a surprise, but Chief, I want you to speak before, please.
We feel the same way about Billy, and you talk about a guy who's made an impact that is felt and seen. That's Billy Hicks. So it's my honor to present this. But Charlie Soap is the the initiative behind this presentation. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Folks, what we think about Mr. Charlie? So, my goodness, let's give him a round of applause. That's great. You know, as I sit here and listen to Charlie and learn so many things, he talked about the way they met at Bell. I want to tell you guys something. Recently, Chief, Deputy, several of us, we went out to the community of Salad Bowl. Charlie knows Salad Bowl Holler. It's a suburb of Bell, I guess you could say. But it's a place where there's a hunger for organizing, there's a hunger for activities, but there's no access to them. So Chief noticed that and said, well, let's go ask them what they need. So we had a meeting at Bell School a few months back, packed the room out, and we did it the exact style that Charlie so laid it down. And now that community is going to see new housing, they're going to see new community building, and they have a new community organization. And it's also pretty neat to hear him talk about Cherry Tree, because Charlie, we were there last week. We're doing the same thing there. Got a great new organization, housing, community building coming. This is happening in the Cherokee Nation. And we are doing it because it's the right thing to do, but we're also looking at what our elders have done before us. So what don't, Charlie? What don't? I want to make one quick reminder too that there's a QR code on everyone's table in the middle. That's for the Q&A portion. You can go ahead and start submitting some questions if you have those now. Just want to make sure you have that reminder. As well as in your packet, Miss Savannah's going to hold this up here. Her name is Vanna, so she's got to be presented here. So inside of your CCO booklet, there's an icebreaker questionnaire. If you fill that out, you will receive one of these. And we want to get your answers on those. Those are very important. So take some time today to make sure you fill those out. But at this time, I want to introduce our next speaker. So Chief's talked about him. He serves on the task force for community organizing. He works for communications. Many of you have probably seen him because he's traveled every square mile of the Cherokee Reservation and beyond over the years, showing folks what Cherokee communities are doing and highlighting what you're doing. He's going to be doing that more often. So you're going to get to meet him. You're going to get to visit with him. You're going to get to talk about what he wants to show the public about what you're doing. So please welcome at this time, Mr. Roger Graham.
Like me, I'm going to keep this short. So I've been doing, I can't do this, but I've got to tell a quick Charlie story. I met Charlie with Wilma right when I started, probably 2005, 2006. Charlie told me this story of him, and I know that was one of Wilma's favorite stories. Charlie was cooking beans, and he was out at, it might have been Tailholt or one of the community buildings, and he got smoke in his eyes. And so he told him, he said, you need something, I got smoke in my eyes. And she said, just reach in the truck back there. And he reached out, found the truck, wiped his eyes, and when he pulled it out, it was a great big pair of Wilma's granny panties. Now, if y'all never heard Wilma laugh, she laughed so hard. I still have the photo of her, and she's like, I still have the photo of him telling that story. Thank you, Charlie. And thank you for introducing me to Wilma. So my name is Roger Graham, and I'm a media producer for communications. I get most of my samples from Chief Boston, in which these are one of those. These are CCO video profiles. First I want to say, you know, that I know that I set up some appointments with y'all quite a while back. I had an injury and I'm getting better, but that was the delay. I'm sorry that I called upon you and then didn't come through yet, but I'm getting there. Just want to tell you guys that these are going to be very simple stories, very completely positive stories, okay? So what we are going to need is the name and location of the CCO, the number of members that you have. I'll be conducting interviews, and those interviews will become the narration of the stories. That's why that I need the interviews. So I'll need your title and to talk about your community organization. Some of the things will be like the mission of the CCO. How long has the community organization been a CCO? How long has it been in existence before that? Services that are provided in the community, whether you have a lunch program, whether you have something for pets on Thanksgiving Day. It really, whatever it is. And if you don't have a lot of services, I need to know what your goals are, right? And then after that, really, all that's needed is I need contactors. Believe it or not, I can tell you from not being from here and driving to places, some of y'all are hard to find, right? Like when I go to Brushy, I got to go down 59 to the convenience store and then drive 7 miles back and then make a left because I miss it every time coming from Stillwell. But anyway, where you're located, so that there could be folks in your area that don't know about you. And I know that y'all might think that you're surprised, but that really happened even in this day and age. So most of all, I want you to know that there's no spying on you guys, there's no negativity to this. This is totally positive, and it's my honor to produce these videos. Thank you.
You know, Raj, he has had an injury, but he's a tough guy. He doesn't miss a beat. Whenever he was walking up, he's walking a little slower than normal, but he's also a performer. So I thought it was a little bit of a James Brown impersonation he was going to do to come alive. Let's give it up for Mr. Roger Green. And we've got through the agenda a little quicker than expected this morning, but that's okay. We have lots of things to do. Of course, we have the QR codes. Fill out your booklets. Charlie's got a new book, and he's going to have a book signing set up right out front, so go visit with him. We have Cherokee Nation Department set up. Make sure you go around and visit with them, and then most importantly, visit with one another, somebody you don't know. I challenge you to visit with somebody you don't know. But they're going to set up the lunch buffet. We'll ask everybody to be back here at 11:15, and we will get right back started. So what else?